There is a word in ancient Greek, hypocrites. It means actor, also the root of hypocrite. Both men knew exactly how this ends. The inner citadel. Today we trace the anatomy of a trap. At the inner citadel, midlife is a summons. Epictetus wrote in 100 CE about assigned roles. Carl Jung arrived 1,800 years later with a name. In Volume 9, Jung wrote a sentence that stopped us. The persona, a compromise between individual and society. Not what a man is, what he appears. You have been constructing this since age 8. The persona is not dishonesty, it is survival. The quiet, helpful child, that is the first brick. By 25, the structure is complete and load-bearing. James Holly spent 3 decades watching this structure break. He named what happens between 40 and 50. Holly, the crisis is the split between 2 selves. The shown self differs from the midnight self. You built the career, the relationship, the mortgage. At 43, you wake cold, not sad, empty. A cold recognition. This script was never yours. This feeling is not depression, it is different. Clinical depression belongs in a clinician's office. The gap, the persona versus the capital S self. The self includes everything the persona was built to suppress. Stronger persona, larger and more volatile shadow. 20 years of competence compresses enormous shadow material. Neuroscience is answering something Jung intuited a century ago. Where does the persona live? Physically inside the brain. In 2023, researchers reframed the question of identity entirely. Who and colleagues used fMRI to locate self-concept. The medial prefrontal cortex encodes identity by importance. The MPFC stores the architecture beneath every role played. Remarkably, MPFC peaks during rest, not during performance. The default mode network is self-referential by design. At rest, the network audits whether identity still fits. A 2023 fMRI study changed how we understand identity. Self-concept is structural, encoded in brain architecture. Your 20-year role is literally wired into the brain. The hollow morning arrives at 45 for structural reasons. The neural template is formed, and the audit begins. The hollow feeling is your MPFC questioning its template. A 2021 Nature study found structural midlife brain changes. The architecture that maintained the persona begins to shift. Persona was phase-appropriate, now the phase has changed. Survival architecture becomes a cage in phase 2. John Verveek frames this as relevance realization failure. The psyche loses track of what genuinely matters. The mechanism most people never see is coming next. Holly's identifies the core of the passage, unlived life. The unlived self was never permitted to develop. The hollow feeling at 45 is a midpoint. The shadow grows because the persona was too successful. Each mastered quality compressed its opposite into shadow. The shadow is the compressed self the persona suppressed. Van der Kolk adds the body dimension to Jung. The body registers the split before the mind does. The cortisol dysregulation at 45 is not coincidental. At 45, body and mind are both exhausted. Scientific reports confirmed the Holly's framework empirically in 2025. Most distressed, those who succeeded at the wrong self. Succeeded at becoming someone never meant to be. Jung was not theorizing, he was confessing. 3 years of confrontation, documented in the Red Book. Jung confessed, I was too much the professor. So what is that mechanism? It runs through everything. One ancient passage describes our exact situation precisely. Epictetus, former slave, assigned a role by force. In Encodes 17, he wrote what Jung would discover. You are an actor, the playwright assigned your character. Play it admirably, but the role was another's choice. That selection, the role itself, was another's. Epictetus's Hippocrates became the English word hypocrite. Every assigned role makes us all, linguistically, hypocrites. Epictetus was not theorizing, he had been a slave. His role was assigned by someone with absolute power. He developed proherses, your faculty of moral choice. Proherses, the choosing self beneath every assigned role. After persona dissolution, not reinvention, quiet recognition. Marcus Aurelius wrote privately about this same pressure. Do what nature requires, do not perform for others. An emperor writing privately about the exhaustion of performing. The most powerful persona in history, privately exhausted. 3 domains, spanning 2,000 years of human thought. Epictetus, Jung, neuroscience, all describe the same structure. At 45, the gap between role and self widens. The popular framing of midlife as crisis is backwards. The collapse is the psyche's first honest moment. You are not falling apart, you are falling inward. The symptoms were the cure. Jung insisted on this. Roessler in 2025. Midlife identity restructuring is documented process. Transformation, playing your role while knowing it is a role. Individuation places persona in correct relation to self. The actor performs but now knows he is acting. Jung diagnosed the confusion of role with total identity. Competence is fine, believing it is all you are. The persona is often built to manage attachment anxiety. Conditional love at 8 built a persona now 45. The persona dissolution and the attachment reckoning are one. Self-help rarely acknowledges why the role was originally built. Whose approval was this persona originally built for? At 25, whose approval were you organizing toward? Not who am I, who was I performing for? Jung, Stoic, neuroscience all converge on one action. Not a theory, a practice, startable tonight. 3 steps, they must happen in order. Step 1, name the persona without judgment. Holly, seeing what the first half built is essential. The persona was competent. It deserves acknowledgement. Step 2, locate the suppressed shadow qualities. Competence suppressed vulnerability. Nurturing suppressed ambition and autonomy. Shadow is dark only because it was never given light. The shadow holds what another's assignment could not contain. Step 3, not demolition, conversation between selves. 5 minutes, read what arrives without editing it. Holly's, the first honest act of the second half. Tonight write 1 sentence, do not edit it. Write, the thing I most fear to admit is. The shadow speaks in first drafts, not second thoughts. What arrives on the page is the invitation. The protocol begins tonight. More layers will follow. A second practice comes from Book 10 of Meditations. Aurelius's Prosach, 10 morning minutes asking what is mine. This framework is powerful. Some assumptions are contested. We use Jung as a lens, not a gospel. If overwhelming, bring it to a trained therapist. We offer philosophical self-examination, not clinical intervention. The deeper question emerges from everything we have built. The Stoics called this the examined life. Are you living from proherses or from assignment? Assignment drives choices. Proherses means the self chooses. Here Stoicism and depth psychology arrive at one point. Beneath every assigned role, something was never assigned. The hollow morning is not ending, it is beginning. You did everything right, the meaning arrives differently. The meaning is stranger and more specific than any role. The hollowness is evidence the process is working. Jung's model was refined and challenged. That is science. Neuroscience confirms Jung. Stoic practice confirms it is workable. Will you participate in this process consciously? Most people resist by performing harder and adding more. This path requires less performance, not more. If this named what you have been carrying, begin. The next episode, the encounter with the unconscious. The inner citadel is a practice. It begins tonight.